I like how we say in it and no one seems to understand what it means.
In it?
In it.
Like
Isn't
use
it?
it.
But you just
Oh,
say in it.
isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. But you just say in it
Oh.
like, oh, this band are sick in it. And you're like, yeah, in it.
Y'all call these things here crisps instead of mega snack double fried ranch and cheddar grease dipped South Grand Elk Falls home style tater crunches? Well, ain't that just some doggone cringe, partner?
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. Very, very excited to be welcoming Jay from Guilt Trip all the way from Manchester. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the episode today.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So I always add a little bit of just like context as far as why I'm having a specific person on the podcast. And, you know, like we were talking before we were getting started, I've been a fan of Guilt Trip ever since Unrelenting Force. And I think I actually found out about you guys through the feature of Troy from Easy Money on Separate, I think the track is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you know, I still to this day think Easy Money is one of those like crucially underrated bands, RIP. But you know, that was kind of the intro into you guys. And I have to say that like the style of like the thrashy riffs like really was influential to me, and especially in the band that I'm playing in now. So I feel very fortunate and very grateful to be chatting with you today.
Sick, man. Thank you.
Absolutely.
You. Appreciate that.
So, you know, I think that's kind of a precursor on the background, but I think what kind of inspired me to reach out and do this interview was you guys are coming to Canada in September.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's for the very first time, but I think that was something like, again, it's one of those things like, oh, it's literally on the opposite. This band is literally on the opposite side of the world. I don't know when's the chance that I would be able to see it.
Yeah.
And now that is so close to me, I was like, I got to hit up Jay and set up this interview. So, yeah, so we might hit on that, but I definitely want to talk about, you know, things about the latest EP and like the past releases. But before we get into any of the actual like music chats, it's tradition to check some bevs before we get going. So, let me know what you're going to be sipping on for the episode.
Well, usually I'm just a water guy. I don't really drink fizzy drinks, but I thought I'd push the boat out and I've got Mountain Dew.
Oh, okay. You're expanding your horizons a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I used to drink a lot of fizzy drinks, but I don't really like them that much, you know. And I liked Coke, but I've got this thing in my head where I think it's just gonna make my teeth go green, you know, because it's so dark. And if you drink a lot of tea, your teeth go green in like red wine and stuff. So I thought it's probably the same with Coke. So I stopped drinking that, and then I've just been strictly water for quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Was it more of just like the actual carbonation and the fizziness that you're like, I don't fuck with this? Or
I think it's when I was a kid, I used to love it so much, but as you grow up, your palate changes, doesn't it? And I think it's just too sweet. A lot of them are too sweet. Like I don't know if I'm going to be able to drink this, but I remember this being not too bad, and I one of the ones I actually like. But the rest of them, they're just so sweet, and it's just not keen.
I think seeing, you know, I'm almost 30 now, but seeing people who are in their 40s who just get like the largest Coke at like a restaurant, it's like, how are you drinking that whole thing?
Pretty disgusting, like go,
yeah. And yeah, I think like for, you know, most people with, I would say, I don't know, like the commonality. I'm sure there's some kind of stat out there as far as how many people work some kind of like fast food or that kind of job, at least like, you know, when they were originally growing up. But it's just bags of syrup that's being pumped through tubes and like filtered with water, and it's just it's gross.
It can't be good for your teeth, that.
Yeah. Beverages for me, I'm going to be drinking a Liquid Death, which I was kind of curious, like. I'm sure that people over where you're at probably know about this brand, but I don't think it's available to you guys where you're at.
Is it just water? It's just water, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's just like water in a can. That's kind of the whole shtick.
Yeah, I think I'd never heard of it until I watched you interview someone else and you had it, and then I researched it a bit, and yeah, it was just water. But I like the idea of it. We've got some here which is like water in like a carton. But I don't know. It's all for the good of the world, though, isn't it? Better biodegrading and stuff.
Yeah, as far as just having like just kooky branding and marketing, it's like they have a huge why of like, you know, being sustainable and like doing that for the planet and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, the last time I spoke with Styx, he was like, they have European plans, but it's a slow ball to roll that through. I feel like we're just behind the ball to a degree, because like a lot of the flavored stuff that came out in the States isn't available in Canada. So it's like, I feel like I rep for them so hard, but like I don't have full access to the full suite of Liquid Death things, unfortunately.
I didn't know they did like different flavors though. That's pretty sick.
It's super new, probably within the last few months, half a year maybe. But they have like a mango one, a lime one, and like a berry, which I've all tried. They're all sick. But yeah, it's not quite available yet in Canada just yet. So we'll see.
Right, sick. Yeah.
Well, Jay, cheers to you, my guy. Really excited to be doing this interview.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course. I'm always like a little nervous when I'm doing this cheers over my laptop that like my hand is gonna twitch and it's game over.
Feel it everywhere.
So Jay, any like new guests that I have here on the show who's never come through the Scoped universe, I always like to kind of get a little bit of their like heavy music origin story. So take me way back in time when you were like first learning about breakdowns, guitar riffs, solos, however you want to spin it, and we'll kind of get a little bit of like the foundation when it comes to Jay and hardcore. So
my first,
however you want to start it.
But my earliest memory of music was Linkin Park was the first ever music I read. Like obviously I heard music before then, but you as a kid you're like not conscious until you're like 7 or something. Do you know what I mean? You just one day wake up and you're just conscious of everything. And that was Crawling was the first song that I'd ever like listened to and was like, whoa. Because my mum and dad used to listen to like Tina Turner and Tracy Chapman and stuff like that. So I was just used to that kind of thing, but like that sort of the water going down the plug sound at the start, and it was just different, and yeah, it just piqued my interest straight away. And then I just used to take my older brother's Walkman, and it was his CD. He had the Hybrid Theory CD, and I just used to take it when he weren't in and just listen to it in my headphones on my own. And yeah, that's my earliest memory of music. So I've been.
How were you finding out about the Linkin Park? Like, was it through like seeing a music video on the internet, or like was it on like a compilation of something? I just find that like I'm kind of very similar pathway to you. Like Linkin Park was like a very pivotal band of like, oh, this is what like pissed music can sound like.
Yeah.
But they were just implanted in like, you know, like little anime reels that you would find on YouTube back in the day, or like
you were everywhere.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of curious on like where the roads crossed for you.
Well, at that age, I don't know how old I was. Probably about 6 or 7, and the only music I had access to was on the stereo at my house, really, because I didn't know there was like music channels or anything. I just used to have like cartoons on half the day, and then I'd watch like cricket for the rest of the day or something. But all the music that I'd listen to would be my older brother. He used to love music. I don't think he likes it anymore, really. I don't see him listening so much, but he used to have every CD, and I mean like thousands of CDs. So everyone about at the time. So it was like Linkin Park, Slipknot, Dre, Eminem, Rage Against the Machine. You know, the one with the guy burning on it. So
yeah,
every piece of music I listened to was one of his CDs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was kind of like you had cornerstone people in your life who were kind of like, they already had the research and you just discovered it, and then you just went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. So he just used to play it in his room, and then when he was out, I just used to, whatever new CD he had, I'd just take it, listen to it if I liked it. which I mean, I don't know how I decided whether I liked it or not when I was like that age. But yeah, I
Sure.
just listened to it all, and that's sort of even now to this day, that's the music that I listen to, like just day to day, like Linkin Park, anything from like the late 90s, early 2000s. That's my jam.
So when you were discovering everything, were you, because you mentioned Eminem and Dre in there as well. So
Yeah.
like, were you kind of like pulled in like, oh, this is the heavy music and then this is like the more hip hop and rap stuff? Because I feel like a lot of people when they're first discovering that, they just think everything is the same thing. And they
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
understand
exactly.
like the different veins of subgenres. So did you distinctly know that they were different things, or you just took it as the same?
I couldn't tell really. I just thought it's just all sort of rap metal kind of thing, because I never listened to it. I don't know how I'd know this, but I knew that Slipknot were like that band that was like the heaviest band ever or whatever at the time, and I was probably too scared to listen to them, so I never ventured that far. But everything else, it was like Limp Bizkit, Rage, Linkin Park, and it's all got that rap influence on it. And then obviously the rap itself, I couldn't distinguish that one was like rap metal, one was just hip hop or whatever. But
Yeah.
I guess it was just the rap was just appealing to me at the time.
Well, I think definitely like Linkin Park was a huge bridge between worlds there, because you had like Mike Shinoda like literally rapping in the verse, and then you had Chester just screaming his guts out.
Yeah,
And you know, doing stuff like the Jay-Z like live adaptation,
yeah,
like
exactly.
that, like it was very clearly connecting those worlds. So you could look at Eminem and then you could look at Slipknot and be like, oh, these are not like islands that are totally unaccessible to one another. There's like
Yeah,
there are bands that are bridging the gap, and you see a lot of bands in the scene now that are like either paying homage to some of those early people that established those bridges, and they're
yeah,
creating their own bridges. So it's really really cool. And I think like a big thing that I learned as I was getting more into hardcore is that like there is a lot of undertones when it comes to just like hip hop culture and hardcore culture as well.
yeah,
Like with
definitely.
like vocal features and just like flows and things like that. So yeah, I think it's just not something when you're getting into it that it's clearly like marketed as, but when you dig any bit deeper, you're like, oh, there's like clear
Yeah,
connections here.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it all comes back to just R&B in the end, doesn't it? And I mean, I'm sure Linkin Park weren't the first ever band to do it, but they definitely had a massive impact. They were the biggest band to do it, weren't they? For sure. So
Totally.
and I think it just changed a lot of things in it, because even with Slipknot, there was tracks where Corey was trying to like rap and scream at the same time. Obviously, it weren't as good, but
Oh, Spit It
Chester's
Out is
screaming as
like
well was
half. It's pretty much rapping the whole
yeah,
time.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. There's so much word. It's like trying to chew and talk at the same time
yeah,
under the mic.
exactly, yeah. I think
um,
they really hit the nail on the head with it. Getting the two guys, one to do one job, one to do the other. It's
Absolutely.
tough to do both.
So a lot of this, I guess, like music that you're finding out originally is all like within, you know, in America is definitely like the biggest hub when it comes to a lot of like mainstream music.
Yeah,
You know, and I can say that speaking as a Canadian, where it's like, yeah, all my influences were coming out over there, and then I was only discovering like the Comeback Kids and like the stuff that was actually like in my local sphere.
yeah.
So for you, who were like kind of the first local band within within that heavy music space that like really helped like seal the deal for you?
I've got no idea. I don't even remember listening to anyone from England like back then. And I probably did, but I just didn't know. I didn't know where anyone was from. But right now, I have no idea which the first English local band to me that no idea. I just maybe like when I was getting more into metal, maybe Black Sabbath or something. But I never really got along with them. I had a phase where I was like, this is the best thing ever, and then I grew out of it pretty quick though. But yeah, other than that, I just cannot think of another local band
Wa-
to me that was that influential.
Was it like, was there an element of like, oh, this only exists on the other side of the world? It like, because that was the thing for me. It's like I would just see all these bands on the internet and like, oh, there's no one that could do something similar within my local scene. But then you just, again, you have that first experience at a show. You're like, oh, this band is just this band is in the same vein and performing in the same way of all the bands that I look up to. So, so no one off the top of your head is like really like screaming like it was this band.
Yeah. I'm sure if you mentioned one, then I'd remember. But as far as I'm aware, it was just the American bands, and it just went from like Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park, and then eventually over time traversed into like the heaviest Slipknot and Korn and that kind of thing, Cold Chamber and shit.
Okay. So yeah, I think we've laid a lot of groundwork when it comes to like, Jay and, heavy music. There's my dog who's wearing a cone right now.
What's that done?
He had my younger dog bit his leg, and he, like most dogs, has just been like licking it for like weeks on end. So I literally was like, I need to get the biggest cone possible. It's like a 2XL. I think it's like 12 inches off his neck. So
wow,
he's a little shy when it comes to pushing doors with his nose or whatever. So I think he's just going to get some pets. So let's kind of like fast forward a little bit and talk about like the start of Guilt Trip. So tell me about like, was that your first band that you were starting? Was that your like 19th band? Tell me a little bit about the foundation there when it came to you starting to front bands and all that.
Well, we had a band before Guilt Trip, which I won't tell you the name of because it's really embarrassing, but it was me and Jack who were in the band still to this day. And we were just messing about, tried demoing a few times, but it was just, we had no idea what we were doing. We never had like a hardcore sort of influence. We never got to that point. Like it was, we both had sort of brought up on the early stuff from the 90s. And then when we went to school, literally no one in our school, or in our year at least, our friends listened to it. So we just sort of drifted away to different styles. He went more to like rock, like Nickelback and Creed, and I was just into whatever was in the charts at the time. I didn't really have much idea. I just listened to whatever was the most accessible. And then after school, we went into sixth form or college or whatever, and we just started slowly getting back into it, listening together to the bands we listened to as kids. And we were like, yeah, we should start something. And we ventured out from like your household names like Slipknot and then like Metallica and stuff. And then we found, like bands like Stick to Your Guns and stuff, and got into that kind of metalcore space. And then from there, I think we obviously got access to Terror and Knuckle Dust from the UK and stuff. And that's when we decided like, yeah, we wanted to make a metal band, but we did want them hardcore influences because I don't know, just something about it just appealed to us more. But so we started this little shitty band that we were just doing in my bedroom, and we were just terrible. And then in the end, we managed to sort of like recruit two people who kind of knew what was going on, and we formed Guilt Trip, and then did Unrelenting Force, and that was where like we sort of hit when we were trying to decide sort of which style we felt like suited us best. It all came down to Unrelenting Force. Like our drummer at the time, Liam, he was mad into like every band you could think of, so we had quite a lot of knowledge on sort of what we could sound like and what would suit best. And we just hit on like kind of thrashy. I don't know what you'd call it really, because it is, the riffs are super thrashy and the drums are, and the vocals are more like actual hardcore vocals. I would say, in my opinion, anyway. So I guess it comes down to like thrashy hardcore kind of thing, I think. And yeah, that's where we were at that time. And to this day, I think, I don't know how we managed to. I don't want to blow my own trumpet or anything, but I do think that EP is like really sick. I'm still super proud of all of us for how we came up with it and stuff. And I don't think we'll ever write something that really peaks at that. I mean, we're trying to, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, because came out in 2016, so it's like just over 5 years old. And I listened to the whole your guys' whole discography today, starting with Unrelenting Force and kind of just following the timeline. And I'm like, man, like I feel like I'm writing that stuff that I feel like is at that caliber now versus like 5 or 6 years ago. And yeah, the that release specifically definitely like leans more thrash influence. There's definitely like a lot of like power trip-esque things, but it's still like heavy and like crushing and hits you in the gut. But I think that's one of my favorite things about this space is that you could have something that's like maybe more thrash leaning, and then you could have like drums that maybe are like a little bit more technical and metal, and then you could have your vocals that are like maybe a little bit more rappy and like and hardcore focused, and it kind of like everything just like pulls in its own direction but comes to its own thing, versus like if everyone is just trying to be like and I think diversity in our space is important. If like for bands like Dead Heat or Power Trip, whether it's like everyone is just doing thrash stuff, it sounds awesome. But I think a lot of uniqueness comes when everyone can like do a sprinkle of this and a dash of that, and it all comes under one thing. But yeah, that again, originally found that EP through the feature with Troy. So how did that even come to be, like with the whole like Arizona and Manchester connection there?
I don't know. I remember we had like she was kind of like our manager / I don't even know. She was just a good friend of ours, and I met with her and we became like really good friends, and she just started supporting our band, and she was kind of like everyone kind of knew her. She was like quite a big deal, and she came across Easy Money somehow. I don't know how, and she hooked it up, I suppose, and through her we became friends, and then we arranged a tour. We got them on our record, and yeah, it was a fun time. But I mean, it is a bit crazy how it's like a band from Manchester, UK, links up with an Arizona band from the other side of the world. It's
right.
Crazy.
You're seeing that a little bit more, especially like people that maybe are getting into hardcore within the last couple of years, like the whole like Gridiron Despise split, or like Out for Justice doing something with Mourning. So there is that like European and then American kind of tie, but I think it was just cool to have that like again, I'm at this point I'm an Easy Money like simp. I will ride for that band like well after like they've been broken up for a long time now, but like I just my good friend Cam from these streets, shout out to Cam. He said it best, is like Easy Money is like ADHD hardcore. Like it doesn't make sense, but you just have to listen to it and just mosh stupidly, because some of the songs you're just like, how are these why are these change ups so ridiculous, but they work so well? So
they were different. They were like
I think that they were just ahead of their time.
Yeah, I think they was that EP that Midas Touch, was it? That was, I don't know about the one after that, but that one was so good. And I remember when it first came out, and it was all I listened to for even before we arranged to like get them on our record and do a tour with them. I couldn't stop listening to it. Like it was just, it was sick. And to this day, it's still sick.
It holds up. So, shout out to Troy. If you're listening, I definitely want to do a podcast. I know I've DM'd you like 7 times about it, but I'm giving you a break from my punishing messages about it. But yeah, I thought that was like very, very cool. And obviously, when you do any kind of collab like that maybe starts through like an internet connection, I think it's really cool to be able to like realize that in the flesh. So like them coming over and doing that tour with you was like definitely sick.
Yeah.
Okay, so Unrelenting Force comes out. It's kind of like your quote unquote debut thing. What was like going through your mind? Like, was it a slow build as far as like attention wise, or was it like huge right off the jump?
I don't know how, because we had like a really, really shit LP, which was just so terrible, and we ended up taking it down because it was that shit. But we managed to somehow build like a little bit of hype up towards Unrelenting Force, and people were actually excited for it. And then when it came out, it was straight away, it was popping off. Like we could see loads of people were listening to it. But then over time, it's just kind of got bigger and bigger. It weren't like one explosion of like popularity at the start and then it just petered out. It's just kind of gradually grown, which I prefer, to be honest. Like I'd love to have just blow up and get huge over a couple of months. But I think the fact that your stuff is still getting listened to years later rather than it was just all at once, it just shows how like music can be just so timeless, and it can just hold up to this day from any time, really.
Mm-hmm. What you know, I definitely think some of your guys's, well, that's not even true, because when I was looking at Spotify today, a lot of your top songs on there are from River of Lies, which I want to get to in a bit here. But what is like maybe the one song off that EP that you feel like, you know, you guys are best known for, just off of that specific?
I think when we play Unrelenting Force, the first bit, the first like Unrelenting Force one liner was like, that's like a really sick bit for us live. Like everyone seems to know that. But I think Disdain is probably the most popular one. Like it seems to get the crowd going a lot more than, not a lot more. I think they all pop off, but that one's the one where you're like, yeah, this is sick. We get like circle pits and stuff. And I think if you're getting a circle pit as a hardcore band, you definitely doing something.
You definitely did something right there. Dude, it feels like pulling teeth nowadays to convince anyone to run in a circle.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, if everyone commits, it's the coolest shit ever.
It's sick. It's so sick.
When it's three people like trying to get, it's just like, man.
Yeah.
So I can't remember. I did an interview with someone new, and I was just I did this monologue of how we have to keep circle pits alive because the fast parts aren't going to go away. Like you need fast parts in heavy music of all kinds definitely. To like have that contrast to like the slower breakdowns or whatever. But if no one's gonna circle pit, people are gonna write fast shit anymore. So so Unrelenting Force comes out, kind of this gradual climb. And like you were saying, you had like an LP that you were like, this doesn't represent us, it's not our sound, so let's like X-nay that. So the next thing you guys do is the River of Lies LP. So like, what was was there a little bit of pressure off of, we put out this LP that we kind of like, you know, got rid of? So was it a little like, I always find that a mentor of mine has always said like, you could put out just a ton of EPs and whether they hit or not, it's cool, but it's like an LP is really where you make your mark as a band. Yeah. So was there a bit of pressure off of like that previous LP that you guys were like, you feel like you kind of missed the mark on to a degree?
We never even looked back after we got rid of that one off iTunes and stuff. I think we were just more thankful that no one would ever hear it ever again. But it is on YouTube now, unfortunately. But it was more living up to Unrelenting Force. And originally we did write an EP, but we'd sort of like, a lot of us had butted heads in the band and we wanted to go different directions and stuff. And it just showed in the writing of the EP. It just was nowhere near as good. And it got to like maybe a week before we were releasing it, and I was just like, no, we can't put it out. We originally was going to just break up and just drop this EP, but it was like, if we're going to break up, we may as well just break up and have Unrelenting Force. What's the point in putting something out which is just total arse? Because it was terrible. And a lot of we had arguments about it and whatnot. And then our drummer that we had on Unrelenting Force, he ended up leaving, moving on, doing his own thing, and we got a new guy in and wrote River of Lies. And I don't want to speak for us all, but I'm definitely disappointed in that album. I wish it would have been an EP because I think there's so much filler on it. There's so many songs that I just don't care for. And at the time, when we was writing it, I was in this weird headspace where I was thinking, the lyrics don't have to mean anything. I can just write whatever I want for effect and people like it. But then looking back now, it was the worst mistake I made because so many of them songs just mean absolutely nothing to me. And it's gutting really, because your music it's supposed to mean something to you. You know what I mean? When you're performing it, you're supposed to feel that emotion. I'm just not connected to a lot of those songs. And we went down a path that we probably shouldn't have. We got rid of a lot of the fast bits, and it's so slow, that LP, and it's just not. It doesn't represent us at all. There's like a couple shining moments on there, but overall, it's we were writing it to get a live reaction more than we were to write good music. You know what I mean? We wanted like, oh, let's do all these beat downs and we'll get people like moshing all the time, and it just left the songs too much to be desired. Really, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but Thin Ice and like Blood and stuff, they're some of our top played ones, and they're some of the good ones. But there is just half of that album is just filler to me anyway. I don't like I said, I don't want to speak for my bandmates and stuff, because we did work at making it. We did work quite hard, not as hard as we should have, and we didn't put anywhere near as much effort as music deserves. But we worked, and it's just unfortunate, really. But it did all right. But it's just, I think if your music does all right, if you still don't like it, it's always going to be there at the back of your mind, like frustrating you.
Yeah, I think, and I appreciate you being like vulnerable and honest about it. And like as a fan, I was like, I think this album rips. But I can, I think there's a couple things that we can break down here. The first being, I think everyone's our own worst critic to a degree.
Yeah.
Definitely. The second being like, I think that it's that saying like putting your soul on wax. So it's like whether you're actually doing a vinyl pressing or not, like every little detail of your music should be like, you should not skip any beats or like or cut corners or anything like that. It should be like, before we're sending this out into the world, it should be good. And it's a double-sided coin where it's like, I'm a firm believer of just like putting stuff out even if it's not perfect, but I feel like your music and art is like one of those things where it's like, it's worth it if you have it at 80%, and it's kind of that 80% rule, like just send it out, kind of like learn from that imperfection. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like certain music projects, whether it's like your first album, your first release in general, like you should just take that extra time. And whether that's like the lyrics that you're writing, or like when you're actually doing the guitar takes, there have definitely been times for me in past projects where I've like, oh, well, we'll just do it this way, or the vocals are kind of missing this, but we'll just kind of leave it. And I like never go back and I listen to those records anymore. And I think I love the songs, but how it all came together, it leaves, it just brings me back to like, oh, like you skipped it. So so I don't know. I'm not saying that's how you feel about it, but like, I think for anyone listening, it's like what you do with your music really matters. And whether you want to be just like a dummy beat down, just like pissed kind of band, like that's cool. But if you're like, it's really important for me to write music about stuff that I'm passionate about, that I'll connect to, then like take that time to do that. It could take an extra month, it could take an extra year, but I think that matters for sure.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I mean, even when we wrote it though, like we were in the studio recording it, and we were just trying to convince each other that it was really good. And on the drive home, we had like the first like shitty mix, and we were just trying to say like, no, yeah, it's sick. This, like, people are gonna love it. And I think we all just knew at the time like it's really not sick. And even when we actually wrote the songs, we just go to like a practice room every week and just write 2 songs and then do 2 more. It took us like 5 weeks, and you should be spending 5 weeks on each song. Do you know what I mean? You can't just put a few riffs together, then put a breakdown in them, and then it's done. You should be working to like, that's what separates like the really sick bands, the ones that put that extra time in to get the different type of beats in there, different moments and stuff, and it's not just one dimensional riff breakdown or whatever.
Yeah, so I think if we could, do you like the movie Back to the Future? Yeah,
it's one of my favorite films.
I have a flux capacitor tattoo on my wrist. And this is also what's that?
I've got a little poster here. If I could turn my computer on, I'll show you, but it's just right there in front of me.
I have a DeLorean little thing here. I have a little print. So I'm glad that we're on the same wavelength here. But yeah, I guess like I was using that as a way of like, if you could jump in the Back to the Future DeLorean and go back, what would be the one thing that you would, I guess, tell your past self when you guys were working on that project? Like, what would be the thing that you would try to change, or at least encourage your past self? Or do you think that you've learned more based off of like, doing the LP that way? I'm just kind of curious of like
Yeah,
what you would change, but what have you actually learned from that?
yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I think if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be where we are now. So I think we've learned so much from making that mistake that I probably won't go back and change anything, because it's put us in a place where I think right now we're so like fixed on what we want to do and how we want to write things and how we want it to sound. And I think we wouldn't be like that if it weren't for that record. And as frustrating it is having it out and having people listen to it, it's all for the greater good for the band in the end, because we've learned so much. But if I was to go back, I'd just say like, stop doing these beat downs and make it fast again, because that's what we are. Like, we're a fast, like, thrashy band. Why would you get rid of that? Because there's not that many bands out there that are doing like the thrashy influence on the hardcore and stuff. And I think we do sound quite, I mean, some people might think we just sound the same as whatever, but I think we've got our own sound, and I think we let it go a bit with River of Lies, and so that tells us that we can do better.
Yeah, no, I totally agree that that without it, the lesson is more important than the actual thing, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely when River of Lies came out, for me as a fan of you guys, I was like, oh, this is like a lot heavier. And I almost was caught off guard. I think in Blood, like it's like kind of like the metalcore kind of like Panic like notes.
Yeah.
Then that was the first time I heard you guys. I was like, whoa, like what? And I love seeing bands evolve and try new things, and you can kind of look at a discography off of like 4 or 5 releases and see, like, it's really cool to kind of look at the breadth of work that Turnstile has put out, like how it started with the really raw kind of hardcore demo that had elements of jazz and pop. Like, it was super under the radar, and then how that has evolved over time. So I wasn't like off put by it, but I was just like, oh, okay. And it definitely was like more beatdown sounding. But I think now with Rain City, it feels like a nice balancing of the scales of like the faster thrashy stuff, but also paying homage to like the more heavier side of you guys. So before we get to that EP specifically, top 3 songs for you off of River of Lies.
Thin Ice, just because it's our biggest song. I really like Hand of God, even though it's super slow and not very impactful. And probably Blood. I do really like Blood, but we never play it live. And I say every time we're going to play, we should play Blood, and everyone's like, nah, it's not good. And even like my friends that I have that are not into hardcore or metal or anything, I've got a lot of supportive friends who still listen to us, and they always say like, why do you not play Blood? It's like the best song you wrote. And I'll try and tell them, and they're just like, no, we're not doing it. But I think it's quite tough to play for them instrumentally as well. But,
I think a personal favorite of mine is Forked Tongue.
Oh yeah,
I feel like that is definitely like more leaning in that thrash element. But like all those songs, I thought it was funny too how the LP is called The River of Lies, but there's kind of like a river of blood kind of within the artwork, and then it's like River Lies, and then the next song is called Blood. And it's like we kind of know what's going on here.
That was just fluke, to be fair. I think.
Yeah, I was like, is this coincidence or intentional? Okay, so like a few pandemic time added, as far as because River Lies came out in 2019, and then
that's right.
You guys dropped Rain City just towards the end of last year.
Yeah, 2021 October, I think it was.
Yeah. So like talk to me about like again that balancing of like taking what really worked in unrelenting force and then taking the things that you liked about River of Lies and kind of like balancing that and then combining that into this latest EP.
I think we didn't really again go back to like our sort of thrashy roots or anything. We just kind of made Rain City was like how we really wanted River of Lies to be, like heavy but not beat down. Do you know what I mean? But we wanted it to still be heavy, and I don't think there's much thrash in there. There's a little bit more than there was on River of Lies, but it was more like, I don't know. I'd say it's just more like metal, really. There's a lot of songs where we've noticed playing them live as well. There's not a lot of mosh parts in some of them, and even though they're like, it's my favorite music that we've released, but I think as far as like a live show, some of them they're not really live songs, they're more like songs that you'd sit and listen at home to, I think. And I'm still super proud of that. I love the thought that people will listen at home and like enjoy it, because I mean I enjoy it. But yeah, I think we play All I Ate is like the one that really pops off live, and then we've played Fraction of Time, but it's really hard for us to play, and there's not really that much mosh parts other than the very end. And then Emerald Gate we play and just don't really get a lot of movement. There's not really many. I don't think there is a two-step in Emerald Gate, and there's yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I think it was different for us, but I think we smashed it, to be fair. I'm super proud of it. We only wrote it between three of us, but I'm super proud of the other two guys, because they were on like FaceTime during lockdown writing it the whole time. And then I didn't really have a say in anything until they sent me the whole thing finished after maybe just towards the end of lockdown, and I had to send it back because every song was like 15 minutes long. So I told him, like, you got to cut that out, cut this out, change this, and we made them under 4 minutes for the most part, I think, without the all the samples in there. And yeah, but they killed it, man. They absolutely killed it, in my opinion.
The actual name Rain City, is that based off of like you guys having rain constantly throughout the year, or is there like an homage to something else there? And I only ask because where I'm based in Canada is really close to Seattle and Vancouver, which traditionally it's like, yeah, it will rain for like 3 weeks straight and you'll never see the sun. So I was like, that's where my mind went to it, but I don't know if there's like another meaning.
Yeah, just Manchester, where we're from, it's just nicknamed Rain City just because it rains all the time. And when we were trying to come up with a good EP name, our drummer Tommy was just like, why don't we just call it Rain City? And we were like, nah, that's so shit, man. And then after like a few weeks, we were like, you know what, that's really sick, and we just went with it in the end. And I think it's like, it's nice to name something after like where we're from, you know what I mean, where we're representing. Yeah, I think it's cool, and he really hit the nail on the head with that name in the end.
Yeah. Are you do you get mentally affected with not seeing the sun and it constantly raining, or is that just like what you're used to and you're like, yep, this is just my life and where I live?
Yeah, I think usually we do get like a decent summer for a couple of weeks. Like right now, it's
for just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we get like 2 weeks, but it's been a really nice day today. But when you get to sort of like the end of February, where you've just had constant miserable days since the end of September, it's like, what, 5 months of just rain and just dingy dullness. Yeah, it gets a bit like, fucking hell. This is just too much to bear. But then you just got to plod through it and you get on with it. But yeah, looking at the sky and it's just dark all the time is really shit. Yeah,
like where Western Canada gets like pretty dumped on for snow, and especially where I grew up, like it was nicknamed Winter Peg because we had winter for like 6 to 7 months of the year. So it's tough. Like moving here to Calgary, it's like a little bit different because like we'll have these things called Chinooks. So it's like, because we're so close to the mountains, like warm air pressure will come over just super randomly at times, and then it will like melt. So you just won't have snow for a few days, and then like it will snow again.
Oh, that's sick.
But it will because we have that, it'll just snow randomly in like September. or like
Right.
we had snow at the beginning of May, I'm pretty sure. So it's for me, I think as I've gotten older, my tolerance of being like, I'm a Canadian, snow is just part of life
Yeah.
over here, and it's just like, can we fucking not have snow for like
Yeah, snow is shit. I hate snow so much.
Mhm.
Out of
I
all
think
all the
where
weather.
you guys are going to for your Canadian dates, you're just going to Eastern Canada.
Yeah.
So there, it's just totally different. Like my
All right.
folks are out in that realm, and they'll get more like snow, and then it'll melt the next day, or it'll just rain. So I feel like it will be the same,
Yeah, we're
climate
used to
wise that you're
that.
probably
Yeah.
used to.
Yeah, that sound. Yeah, well, I'm
Yeah.
really excited to go, man. I've never been to Canada in my life, so it just
Mhm.
kind of came out of the blue as well. Just
Well,
one day.
yeah, because I was like, it just popped up on my feed. I was like, what the fuck? And it wasn't even like North American, and then there's some Canadian dates. It's
Yeah,
like Canada, and I'm like,
yeah.
yo. So like, yeah, like how did that idea come to be?
We just randomly had an email in our mailbox one day, and it was just like we'd come to Canada, and we talked about it a little bit, and just thought, yeah, why not? We might as well do it. And then I don't really tend to get involved in the booking of shows and stuff because I just get too stressed out. So Jack, our guitarist, he deals with pretty much everything. So he just arranged it between himself and the promoters for each show. And yeah, we managed to land on that. We've got a pretty good support band. I think that band have been about for a while as well.
Who's the support band again?
Scaffold.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think there's I'm trying to create a little bit more unity between the eastern and western sides of the country,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there is like I know like this sliver of Eastern Canada like heavy bands, but then there's like this it's like that like it's like that iceberg kind of analogy where it's like
Yeah.
you see the top, but then
Yeah,
it's
and
the
then all
huge
under
thing
it's like
underneath.
all the way
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure the same could be said from anyone who's listening who's on the east side of Canada that might know a couple of the Western Canada bands, but it's like, oh, I could pull some really just obscure names out of the woodwork if I really wanted to.
Yeah.
So that'll be your first time coming to Canada ever.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to the most as far as experiencing Canadian culture?
I don't know. I'd like to see how well we do because I don't feel like we're gonna come and just like sell out every show or anything. I think it's gonna be a bit. I think we're gonna have a couple where it's like, but I'm excited to see how well we do. Yeah, I think we just toured Europe and it was ridiculous. Like every night was pretty much sold out. So I think it'll probably bring us back down to earth a little bit. But I am looking forward to because I'm sure one or two of the shows will do really well. And that's what it's about, isn't it? You're always going to have like the one or two quiet ones on every tour.
Mhm. Yeah, but I think, and I try to say this, I can only speak for Western Canada because that's my scene versus Eastern Canada. But like, I think that if a band is there's always like, oh, this band is the touring act came from X amount of hours away.
Yeah.
And so you take that to the next level. Like this band literally crossed an ocean to come here. So you better show up, buy the entire merch display, and mosh like your life depended on it. Because like that's like again, especially doing that all on like the tail end of all this pandemic stuff is like you better show the fuck up for fucking Guilt Trip in Eastern Canada, boy.
Yeah. I think that on our Euro tour, that was, I think, although I'd like to think we organically sold all them shows out, I think the fact that we were one of the first bands to sort of come back and tour really did benefit us a lot because I think a lot of people were just like desperate to come back to shows and desperate to watch a band that wasn't from their native country. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of people came to watch us, but I think the shows were just that little bit more packed out because people were just ready to get back into the swing of things.
Yeah. I know that over here, there's a lot of new people that are coming to the scene because maybe they saw a clip of Tsunami on TikTok or whatever, and then they're like telling all their friends and bringing that. So I'm kind of curious if that is the same over in Europe right now, or if it's like for different reasons. I don't know.
A lot of the shows we saw a lot of people that we seen when we did it in 2018 with Jude History and when we did it in 2017 with Easy Money. There was a lot of the same faces there. There was a couple of new faces, but I don't think that kind of TikTok thing has sort of hit over here for metal bands, hardcore bands.
Mm-hmm. So it maybe is like not as many new faces, but just a lot of the recognizable ones that are everyone is coming to the same spot.
Yeah, I mean there was like a fair amount of people that I've never seen before, but it's just weird to see people that you did see like 4 or 5 years ago when you were here again, and there was quite a lot of them.
We played a show last night, and I had seen someone that I don't think that I had seen her since the start of 2019.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I moved down to Calgary, and it was like, oh my gosh, and we like had this like but yeah, it's like it's this weird thing where sometimes in the scene when you're going to different fests and different things, like, oh yeah, you haven't seen so and so because you only link up at that one fest, or you only wait until your paths cross naturally versus trying to go out of your way specifically. Because if you were trying to go out of your way to link up with every person in hardcore, that's like really hard to do.
Yeah,
especially if you're like really connected and you have a lot of homies. But yeah, just like pandemic time just really like added a lot of that. So it's like, oh, I haven't seen you in 4 years. I haven't seen you in 5 years. And that person could be in a way sicker band than the last time that you saw them, or they're like, they, maybe had a kid. There's like so much catch up that's happening right now. It's
a long time, isn't it? And it flew by. Like from my perspective, I worked through pretty much all of it, but when it started to when it ended, it was like 2 full years, and it did not feel like 2 years. At the time when we'd not played a show for that long, it was like, yeah, it's been ages. But thinking back, it feels like yesterday that it was literally announced that we couldn't go anywhere. It's gone. It feels like it's just flown by. But I mean, it was a tough time for everyone. I think everyone's pretty happy to see the back of it now, and hopefully that's.
Oh, totally. It's like I had there's a band from Baltimore, and I had their vocalist. Her name is Kat on the show. Her band's called Jive Bomb, and she was saying, I feel like everyone's acting up at shows because they're like, we don't know when this shit's gonna be taken away from us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I was like, yeah, totally. Yeah, and especially with like, I've talked about it on the podcast before, but especially in Europe, like, festival season is coming up, so there's like a lot of like, outbreak and just so many different things happening there. So is that exciting for you, or is there some nervousness of just like, ooh, I don't know, that's a lot of people not from where I'm at coming to my spot, or are you just like, fuck it, I don't care?
Nah, I'm just totally over it. Like, I'll do anything. I'll go anywhere. I'll play anywhere. Like, I think we've suffered through 2 years of all that, and now it's just, I don't even care if I'm in a crowd of 10 people or a crowd of 10,000 people, whatever. If I catch it, then I catch it. I think I have had. I did have it super early on, like even before it actually was announced, and then I think I got it again at some point not too long ago. But I've had my jabs and stuff just so I can get on with things, and yeah, I don't care. I'm super excited for everything that's coming up.
Totally. So I do think that when you guys are coming over here, you got to dabble in a few. Well, okay, so a few Canadian things I would highly recommend for you to plan for when you're over here. Yeah. First off, you can get some Liquid Death.
Yeah, I'll be doing that
at your local 7-Eleven. Yeah. I would say checking out. Have you? Do you guys do poutine?
Sorry.
Do you know what poutine is, or do you do that over there?
Never heard of it.
It's like there's a bunch of different ways that you can do it, but traditionally Canadian poutine is, or poutine, if any of the French listeners are listening and giving me a hard time, it's like fries, cheese curds, and gravy.
Right. Oh, right. So it's like chips and gravy with cheese on it. We have it.
Oh, okay, true. Yeah, it's a there's a bunch of different ways to do it. I have some homies in town who are kind of that same way. It's like, what's like the super Canadian thing that I should do? And in Calgary, where I'm at, we do this thing called breakfast poutine. So it's like hash browns, sweet potatoes, and then you have hollandaise sauce, like what we do on eggs Benedict, and then and some gravy as well. And it's just so good. So
does sound pretty good. We'll definitely try that out.
Yeah. And then I think the other main Canadian staple that you at least need to try is we have ketchup chips. So it's
just
like
chips with
potato
ketchup
chips,
on.
but it's like it's not like ketchup is on it. It's just like that's the flavoring of the chip.
Oh, like crisps, like not chips,
Yeah.
chips, like crisps, right?
Yeah.
We've had them here a few times.
I forget that chips for you is like a totally different thing than just like.
Yeah, we've had they come and go like every few years. We get like a ketchup flavored crisp, and they are pretty good. And then they just vanish for like 4 years, and then they make a comeback, and then they go again. Yeah, but
so chips in Europe are called crisps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not even in Europe, just in England. Because when we go to like Germany and stuff, they say chips as well. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, chips
like,
for us is like
that's not nice.
It's weird.
What is your favorite English word that is not used in the rest of the world? I'm putting you on the spot here. I don't know if that's a very like cheesy question to ask you, but I'm just going to be saying crisp now for the rest of the week when it comes to
crisp.
Hey, I need some
crisp. Crisp's a good one. I like how we say in it and no one seems to understand what it means.
In it?
In it.
Like
isn't it? But you just say in
isn't it?
Yeah. But you just say in it like, oh, this band is sick in it, and you're like, yeah, in it. But no, whenever like we're having a conversation with like between ourselves in the band in another country, and people are listening like, what is in it? And we're just like, it's just in it.
Yeah, everyone's thinking like, is it like inside of it? And you're like, no, it's not exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably my favorite one. It just confuses everyone, but when you actually think about it, it is. I mean, for someone who doesn't speak English, then I guess it's super weird. But for anyone who does, it's just like, isn't it? It's just, isn't it? Isn't in it?
It takes too long to say.
Yeah, exactly. So you just say in it.
I promise that if we're ever playing a show together, I'm gonna use in it as much as I can to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Jay, a couple other questions before we start to wrap up.
All right.
What are you most proud of when it comes to what Guilt Trip has done as a band?
I'm super proud that we've been to like different countries. Like when we started, we never thought we'd play even different places than where we live, but we've been to like Germany, Czech, Austria, recently Switzerland. So we've been all across the board in Europe, Poland. And I think that's always something that I look back on and think like it is pretty wild that we've been pretty much to thousands of miles across Europe playing our music, and people and had good shows there as well. People come and watch it, and not a lot of people get to do that. And I think it's something that when I'm older and like maybe I have children or whatever, I think it's something that will be like mind blowing to them, that I was playing to like 200 people in Poland once or whatever. Right. But I'd obviously like to play in like we're playing in Canada, I'd like to play in America, like maybe Japan or Australia. And I think the more places we play, the more stories you have to tell people in the next 10, 20 years or whatever. And that's something that I'll always be proud of, I think.
What's your favorite story to tell people when it's like the normies or the people in your family that are like, oh, Jay's off and doing all these crazy things? Like, what's your go-to like me in a band story?
We don't, you know what? We don't have that many, because usually after we play, I go to like wherever I'm staying and just go to sleep. So everyone else goes out. So they've got like all the good stories. So I don't really have that many.
You're just like, I'm spent.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta fucking take a nap.
There has been like a few times where, I don't know, we got into like maybe a little fight or something, and I like telling those stories because, look, I mean, looking back, it's just hilarious the things you sort of get into just over such petty things as a band as well. like disagreeing with like promoters or something, and it just turns into like a brawl, and telling people that is like, how are you even fighting over literally nothing? But at the time, you're like proper angry, proper in each other's face.
Yeah,
I do like telling those kind of stories.
Yeah, there's a lot of at shows. I think checking egos is like a super important thing, and that goes for the bands, that goes for like the really obnoxious like mosh person, that goes for like the promoter. Like there's a lot of tensions that can be raised when most times it could just be like, hey, that was unintentional, or that was my bad, and pulling back. Because like I've had some really good friends on the podcast who like I would get my ass beat in the pit with them, but they would like the minute that they like, you know, hit you in the face, or like would grab you and be like, "Are you good? You good? Okay."
They're not doing it like purposely hurt you or anything. And I think it's like, it is funny when you're pitting and someone just absolutely smokes you, and the reaction to them, like they feel dead bad, but you think at the time, like, what were you literally swinging your fist into my face, like what do you expect? But it's all in good fun in the end.
Yeah. I think like people that are new sometimes can you see in the videos of someone taking that personally, and then they're trying to like have some kind of like vendetta, or like, now I have to fight this person in the middle of this band set. But yeah, it's like most times it's just the name of the game, and you just have to roll with it. And like if there's an actual serious thing, like you've broken something or whatever, like get out of the room and deal with it. And I feel like it goes also to the person who maybe like caused that. But like I think that's the thing that's so attractive about this scene, is like there's this constant element of danger, and you never know what could happen when a band is playing. And that could go from someone getting moshed on to like someone caving in a wall, or something getting lit on fire. Like that shit doesn't exist pretty much anywhere, and
no, I mean,
would not want to damper that anymore.
Yeah, whenever people like my normie friends watch videos of us and stuff, they just so mind blown at what people are doing. You just find it so funny. But to us, it's like normal. Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh, totally.
You watch that video and you see someone watching, you're like, yeah, it's just kind of the way it is. And they're just like, whoa, what is he doing? Like, he looks so stupid. But at the time, like, whenever I'm watching people moshing, like, I'd like to say I never think they look stupid, but most people do. But it's just all in good fun, man. I mean, in our band, we all do our fair share of moshing, so we're all in the same boat, looking stupid together. To any outsiders, anyway.
So Guilt Trip is a band of moshers.
Well, I do my fair share. I think Tom, our drummer, does. He likes to go in a bit, and then Brad, our bassist, he likes having a go sometimes, and then Jack, like in Victoria, he'll get in the pit once, like the entire tour. But he does make that effort to at least like show up one time in the pit,
right?
And then
it's him checking a box,
Yeah,
exactly. I did it. I'm gonna go sit down.
And then we've got Nick, who's our other guitarist, and he just never pits, but he does stand like at the sides and stuff and take a fair beating. He doesn't not get involved, but he's just not much of a pitter, I don't think. But overall, I'd say we've got a couple of pitters in there.
I think that's very important for bands, if to have, even if you're not a mosh mutant, to just be in it.
Yeah.
And for the bands that you're on tour with, or like whatever, because it's like. And I've always I had this dude named Corey who plays in a band called Move. I'm sure if you've watched any of like Sonny of Hey 56's videos, like he's like the dude who's like his Instagram handle is Silverback, and he actually moshes like a silverback gorilla. But he said something when I had him on the podcast where it's like, if you mosh super hard, no one's gonna mosh on you. So it's like you have to out mosh people. And I was like, you're totally right, because I am not someone that because I'm normally filming bands when I'm at shows, but the odd time where I can hand the camera off and kind of get in for a bit, I just go as hard as I can for that short stint of time, because I'm like, most people are gonna like just be like, "Oh fuck, Spencer's here." Like let's leave it for a bit. But I think we might be similar because I think we're like of similar builds. Because I don't have
Yeah,
like the girth to me, so I just use my limbs as my you know
yeah.
tools
So
of warfare.
when you're our size, it's all about speed, man. You've got to go as fast as you can, and no one can get you then. As long as you maintain like that, just insane speed through the pit, no one's gonna get you. And with like the faster you swing, the harder you're gonna swing as well, which people won't want to get on the receiving end. But I'm like 5'9" or something, so I don't think I'm very intimidating to most people. And
Oh, okay,
whenever
yeah,
I'm hitting like a
you're a bit
big
of a
fat
short
dude,
king.
yeah,
Mhm.
small as they come, man.
What's your go-to mosh move? What's your signature? Are you
I just do
an arm
like the one arm
flail?
spin a lot, and then the helicopter one, and then do a couple of kicks. I'm not very agile for like a short dude, but I feel like I make it work most time.
I'm 6 foot on the nose, and my go-to is the cartwheel into people.
Oh yeah, I love
It's very
that.
unexpected, and I feel like it could either do a little bit of damage or a lot of damage. You know, because it's not like a fist is coming at you; it's just two legs.
Yeah, and they're
So
not even like coming at you; they're just sort of falling at you. So it's
yes,
you don't have to worry about actually like breaking someone's nose or really
yeah.
hurting someone.
There was a show where I had swung and I felt my fist connect with someone, and I'm like, "Oh fuck!" But when it's my feet and I kind of like stumble, it's more like all fun and games, which I feel
Yeah,
better about. Because
yeah,
I am that person where it's like, because I don't do it super often, the minute that I do something that like a slight ignorant like level, I just feel bad
yeah.
immediately.
Same. I'm like that. As soon as I like catch someone, I'm like, nah, I feel
Yeah.
terrible.
But then that person was like, "That was so sick," and you're like,
Yeah,
"Oh, okay."
usually there's the sound with it. I think if you're gonna stand at the side, you have to know in yourself that you can take getting hit by
Yeah.
something. Because some
It's
like people get hit like nothing and just start going fucking trying to fight and stuff. And I mean, if you want to have a fight, then have a fight, like whatever. But it's usually on the band's time, and no band's playing and wants to see you having like an actual fist fight and people trying to drag you off each other. It's
yeah.
just like disruptive. You're just disrupting the band's performance. It's disrespectful. Like if you actually do have an issue, just wait till it's over, go outside and just fight it out if that's the way it's got to be.
Yes. I feel like there are some bands that almost don't give a fuck though. They're like,
Yeah, I
"Oh,
mean, the
people are
definitely.
fighting their set, whatever."
Yeah, I think like the little sort of scraps like here and there are fine, but sometimes there's like a fight breaks out. I don't. Maybe it's just a UK thing, but like everyone will be like, "Oh, stop fighting," and then no one's pitting then, and no one's paying attention to the band. Everyone's just trying to stop this fucking stupid fight.
Yeah. Well,
And
okay, so
usually
here's the
just
thing.
push it.
Um so I filmed a set in Tulsa, Oklahoma called Prom Corps. Do you know the band Karma from Chicago?
Yeah.
So Karma was playing, and Purgatory was also playing that fest. While Karma was playing, this dude kind of moshed into someone from Purgatory's crew. I was like, "Can I even tell this story?" I'm like, "I don't give a fuck." So like it's on the internet. People can go and find it. But
Yeah.
someone had moshed into that, and then this like brawl started while Karma is playing, and Jordan's just like, he's like, "If you fight, take it outside," but like didn't stop the set at all.
Yeah.
I think they stopped once, but there was 2 fights of the same situation, and
Yeah.
eventually people went outside, and it was funny while it was happening, but then it was like, "Oh, there's like not a lot of people here now because half the people are outside
Yeah. That's the
fighting."
thing, man, because it's affecting the band, isn't it? Like you don't want members of the crowd that are watching you to be going outside and even like security sometimes can be funny and like dragging people out, and you're just trying to have a good time and play
Yeah.
music to people who want to watch it.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like it's not a black or a white situation. It's very gray with a
Yeah,
lot of those
definitely.
things. But yeah, I feel like unfortunately, especially with a lot of like macho-esque heavy music like beatdown or
Yeah,
metalcore or metal, there's just like again, people just need to check some egos and just like, hey, is this something that we need to address right now? Let's go outside and do that and then come back in, or let's just like let it go and maybe address it after the set.
Yeah, I went through my beatdown phase as well. It is a bit different because it's like you say, they do want to get a fight in there, and like, well, you're moshing, you're like, yeah, I'm fighting him, but they never stop the set. Beatdown bands.
A couple other questions, Jay, and then we'll start to wrap up.
Yeah, sound.
I know that you are a bucket hat guy.
Do you love a bucket hat? Yeah.
Yeah. So, what makes a good bucket hat from your perspective, and what should someone consider when they're buying a bucket hat?
Right. I've got a tiny head. My head is like such a peanut. So anything that's like, you see the ones that are like really well structured and they're really big. So you put them on and they look like a cowboy hat on my head. So stay away from them. The one that I use a lot is Ralph Lauren, and it's just really small. It fits on my head dead nice. And the actual peak of it is you can just fold it up and like fold it wherever. It's not stupid. You can just bend it at any point. So if the sun's in your eyes, just pull it down, pull it up here and there. And it's
right.
I think that's what you got to look for. You don't want the one where it's like just really like, well, it just,
more sombrero-esque than
yeah,
bucket hat.
exactly. You don't want that one.
Has Guilt Trip done bucket hats?
We did, yeah, we did them just before we released Rain City, and they were more like a boonie, you know, like where it's the side thing's really, really wide.
Sure. Yeah.
So they were, but they're cool. I've got one, but it's in the other room. I'd show it you otherwise. But yeah, they were pretty cool. But yeah, the thing is just like literally like just a cowboy hat. And there's nothing wrong with cowboy hats. If I could wear one every day, I would. But yeah.
No, it's when I was like just scrolling through your Instagram, I was like, I don't think I've seen anyone rock a bucket hat live as much as you do, and I think that's sick. So
yeah, I wore it every single show on our Euro tour. Love it.
Yeah, I've been on the hunt I've been on the hunt for a good bucket hat for the longest time, and it sucks because anytime you guys drop merch, it sells out really, really quickly.
Yeah.
So if I'm not on it, then I won't have something in my size. But half the time when I'm going to get something, because I live in Canada, sometimes the shipping is like more than the actual like shirt itself.
We are trying to get like a distributor in the US somewhere where it just make everything super cheap for everyone. So we're looking into doing that, and maybe you can get.
I feel like if you're down, or this is a ways out, but like I feel like if you can send me what your merch for your Canadian dates is going to be, and then I can call dibs on something, and then you could just drop it off at like a Canadian post office or something, so I'm not paying an arm and a leg for a single shirt or something.
Yeah, I can do that for you, definitely, mate. Definitely.
That'd be I'm going to be trying very hard to make it to those shows. That tour is in the middle of like not only my band, like I think I'm just gonna pull it up because I was thinking about this during the interview as far as like where you guys are going. So just give me a hot second. Okay, so starting in Montreal, then doing Toronto, Windsor, Ottawa, Sherbrooke, Quebec, Rimouski, and Troy. Rivers? One of those. Sorry to all the Eastern Canada listeners who are listening. But that 9th and 10th, those last 2 dates of your tour, my band's going to be in Toronto playing a fest. So I was like,
all right,
trying to figure out if I could either go a little bit earlier to catch one of the dates and then make it over. So it's going to be one of those things. The day that you guys are playing Toronto is the day of me and my wife's wedding anniversary. I couldn't be more like,
yeah, you can't miss that. Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I hope that maybe we could talk about this a little off air, but like I hope that one day we can sort out something for you guys to come over to the West as well. Maybe that's on the tail end, or I don't know. But dude, this has been such a fun chat with you. I got one more question before we wrap up.
Yeah, Sam.
Every podcast guest who comes on ends their episode with a favorite Mosh related story that's fresh off the top of your head. Could be something that happened to you, happened during a guilt trip set, just a random show that you were at. Whatever's the first thing to your mind is how we start to wrap up.
There'll be so many in there, but I'm just really bad on the spot. I just cannot think of anything.
There's tons of people that have like 9 that they're thinking of. So if
Yeah.
you want to tell 1 or 2, I'm totally game for that.
There's one where I used to play a lot of football and I ended up having to stop because I dislocated my knee. And anyway, about a year later, we were playing. It was after we'd played, and I was in the car park just like trying to do spin kicks, and I just dislocated my knee again in front of everyone. And I was just on the floor like crying, and everyone was just laughing at me. That was, looking back, it was funny. At the time, it was really shit.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I see a lot of people getting kicked in the face a lot, which is always funny. There was a dude when we played EPA, and while Turnstile were playing, we were like at the side stage, and this dude runs onto the stage and he's like trying to do like a somersault, and he just keeps landing on his back, and he must have tried it like 10 times, just landing on his back every time. And we've got a video of it somewhere, and we refer back to it every now and again. But yeah, that was so funny.
Just like flopping around like a fish out of water.
Yeah, he was getting like halfway and then just on his back every time. Like it was fucking hilarious.
Playing the show yesterday, like sometimes when I play guitar, I'll like do kind of like that ultra lean back, and then the minute that I come back, I was like, my back is not built for that flexibility. So I can't imagine some dude just like flipping over multiple times. Like I'm sure he just hit the chiropractor as soon as that show wrapped up.
Your back is super important as well. You've got to look after your back,
dude. I don't think that's ever been said on the podcast, but I'm glad that you said it at the very least. All the guilt trip links and your personal links will be in the show notes in the description for the podcast. But if there's anything that you want to shout out, plug, or anything you want to send the people off with before we go, the floor is yours, Jay.
We're going to be releasing 2 new tracks quite soon for people to listen to in the next couple of months, probably. Shout out to a couple of bands we toured with: Rough Justice, Soul Prison, are really sick, from Germany, Sorcerer from France, they're a sick band. Thank you to everyone who's listened. If anyone that's listening now has watched us in the last few months, I really appreciate you all. Thank you, and thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, man.
Of course, I'm hoping that we get the opportunity to cross paths this year, and I said that the very first time that the band that I get to play in gets to play Manchester, if Guilt Trip isn't playing, like, we're not playing the show. So I hope that comes up in the near future as well. And Jay, thank you for the great chat. I hope that we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, man, thank you very much, man. And hopefully our bands do cross paths and we can enjoy each other.